everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on Upfront in the Prophetic. As you can see, we've got Derek Johnson on. I might as well just bring him on. Um, my goodness gracious. How are you? You popped on and I figured out what the heck, well, everyone, for those who don't know Derek, he wrote this book, which is absolutely phenomenal. The Midnight Rider Rides Again. I don't know. See, you can't really see it because I have it on Blair. But I'll put it in the description where you can find it. Oh, there you go, Derek. Thank you. That's part two. That's part two.
Part one and
Oh,
part
yeah.
two. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love it. And look at, I am telling you, what a significant difference. And I can't believe you wrote that. I mean, in how many months?
Oh, let's see. I'm a procrastinator, so I could say that I started it here, but I really when I signed my contract for my publicity contract was February 18th, 2023. But I really didn't start writing on it until probably August or September, really hard, 2023. Um, I'm just a procrastinator because I was like, well, what I was trying to do is wait and the more stuff keeps coming out. So that means you had to stop somewhere. That's like part one has a stop in December 2023. And I go, okay, I pick up from December 2023 and then it has a stopping point. So I waited till obviously January the 20th, which would be the new phase of the 47. But so in reality, I still have the paper somewhere, and it's probably bad, if it ever became some Smithsonian work or something like that. But I do have the paper where on top of my head, I wrote out the outline, and my outlines are just like not extensive. It's just I have like code words that, will expand to what it expands to, or what President Trump did, the expansion portion. So I've got that paper somewhere. It's like a front and back, this outline. Front and back, and it's the chronological order of the book. So it didn't take me long to write it just because this stuff it's just fluent. But I have to give credit to DNA and genetics. I mean, my grandfather, my dad's a 170 IQ. And my grandfather, I don't know, I don't think he was ever tested, but my grandpa could tell you, like if you were from our town and but you weren't related to us, he'd know your husband, your kids, your grandma, your grandpa, their family. He was a walking genealogy book with that alone. He worked for the Department of Agriculture back in the day when they had to get out with the chains and measure the old school surveying.
Oh,
And see, a lot of people don't even know something that simple that our men that surveyed this nation that laid out what they laid out and how we have 640 acres in a block, and then you know well, my grandfather was one of those. And so I tell people, that's back in the day when they had to remember things. Like
sure.
that's all you had. You had a pen and paper or a pencil and paper, or you had your brain. But if you didn't have a pen and paper on you or a pencil and paper, you better remember something that someone told you. But people forget when you don't have something. Like we have technology now, so we have what? Excuses to do what? Oh, or
Yeah.
back then, they didn't have that option. So, they had to utilize their brain. And that's why I tell people, I mean, I have a few books laying around. I don't have them where I can put them on the screen, but I have a book I found from the 1700s and the 1800s of American Revolutionary history. So
Wow.
someone had to write it down, and it's pinpoint accurate on pretty much everything that guys like me have been taught by my grandfathers and great uncles. But still, somebody had to write that down, which means someone had to do what? Remember it back then.
You bet.
Uh, because they
Yeah.
didn't have it to where I mean, they had to remember every sequence of events and, you know, a lot of
Wow.
us word of mouth back then. But see, back then your word of mouth meant more.
Yeah, sure.
You didn't go around embellishing things. You didn't go around like fibbing. If you did, you were punished for it.
Right.
And more than one, depending on if it was governmental, military, or just your friends and family, like you paid for stuff that you said that wasn't true, etc. You
Yeah.
know, so
I miss that. You know, my dad was a lot like that too, and my grandfather. Yeah, it's just
I mean, I love social media more than anybody because it's like President Trump. Like you got to use it. So it's good when it's good,
yes.
but it's bad when it's bad. And the bad parts are too many people are addicted to it
Mm-hmm.
and they get too used to just clicking on everything versus finding the substance out there
Sure.
that adds the positivity to your life, inspiration, whatever that may be, and staying away from the other versus getting in the comment boxes. It's like I tell people, like you'll see a comment, well, that comment has a short shelf life. When you're reading it, it feels like if it's a negative comment, it feels bad right at them. But it's like when you look at all the comment boxes all over the internet, it's a short shelf life, meaning that someone whoever wrote the negatives already somewhere else writing 50 other negatives, right?
Right.
And so like I tell people, don't take social media serious because most of these people, when they say that, they wouldn't say it to your face.
I was
All
just
right.
going to say that. Right. Exactly. No.
Because
No.
they don't know what kind of person you are. It may be the day you may be a good person, Christian loving person, but it may be that day, you know what? I'll take my chances. You never know. You never know when someone's going to reach that tipping point, that edge, that boiling point, and go, you know what? I've had enough of your mouth.
Right.
So, most people don't do that because they don't know what that other person's capable of. So it's easy to get on this and that. And, I wish it was back, you know, I wish we were back to where we didn't have that, where you had to literally get on a landline and have a conversation if you were going to get on the phone.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, we've
and
lost the personal, relationships with, face to face. Yeah.
that's why I exercise my brain the way I do, like with the memorization, and then I still write stuff down. I do, the notes, and
I
and I tell people that it's just, that's the way you can exercise your brain.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's how I remember everything I remember because I treat it as if everything's shut down.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do then? Like you tell people, what would you do if everything's shut down? You'd have to rely on your skills, right? Your life skills. And we have a lot of people who would not know what to do if everything's shut down. And I'm talking about food wise. You really think about it.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
know that's something people want to think about, but if you really let yourself go there and go, you know what? What if every big box store just went, close their doors, what would people do?
Phew.
You know,
It'd be a
it'd
mess.
be uh it'd be a chaotic time period.
That would. Absolutely. Well, I mean, here we are, April 1st. And
Yeah.
and tomorrow is Liberation Day. There's a lot of talk about Liberation Day, a lot of people speculating on what it could be. And Alan was looking at some research in regards to, I believe, 1792, the first coinage that came out from the U.S. Mint. And I mean, to me, it seems like, even with that statement, that is this going to be like a statement of gold back, that we're going back to the gold back? What
Well,
are
you
your
gotta
thoughts on
you
that?
gotta tie it in. It's got a cool tie in because when I shared that on my page, people went because naturally the we still have so many people who are clicking on the wrong things.
Hmm.
And without me just going, don't listen to this person, this person, this person, this person, I don't have time for that. Like I tell people, if you'll focus on knowing who the commanders are,
Hmm.
who's in charge, who's in command, and whether you want to look at it totally yet like a military operation, even though it is a military government, for the people who just can't see that part yet, you still got to know who's in control. Why are the liberals going so crazy right now? Why are they yelling, kicking, cussing, screaming? Well, that tells you who's in charge. So when you know who's in charge, what are they working with? Laws and orders. President Trump's always been laws and orders, laws and orders. At his speeches, a post the other evening, there's a few things he capitalized in all caps. That was one of them, laws and orders. And he's putting an emphasis on that for people. And so people still want to gravitate to negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's natural in one way. Even psychology tells you it's natural. Like I could receive 1,000 great emails. One bad one comes in and we focus on the bad because we're like, what did I do wrong? What in the world? I got 1,000 good, but man, this one, what did you focus on that because it's an outlier,
Right.
right? And even if 1,000 bad came in and one good, then you're really going to be you're going to like, what? You still don't focus on the one good though. So it's like, it shows you we are geared per se because God made us a loving creature. And the word talks about love all over the Bible, right? But you got to work towards that
Amen. Yeah.
because it don't come easy. There's nothing in the Bible that's easy,
Right.
right? It's hard to be a Christian. That's what people need to understand. It's hard to be a Christian because we're to put, Jesus Christ wasn't a Christian. He was a Jew, right?
Yeah.
But he took the ultimate sacrifice. We that follow him are the Christians,
Right.
right? And so we're to be like him. Well, there ain't nobody perfect, but if you strive to be like him, the more you try to do better, it's hard to do that, right? So when you boil that down, I know people think I go all over the board, but you got to paint that picture that negativity is always going to be there,
Right.
all right? And 23rd Psalms, in the 23rd Psalms, now I just learned recently from a Hebrew friend that death in the 23rd Psalm doesn't mean just death. That word death in that context was changed. It actually means dark, in the dark. Yea, do I walk through the dark.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Right.
means nowhere, no matter where you are in life. Yea, do I walk through darkness. And if you want to think of death as darkness, because we don't know,
Right.
when we think of death, we think of closing our eyes and it's dark. But however you want to view it, yea, though I walk through the darkness, I will
Mm-hmm.
be with you. Right.
Yes.
But it also says what? I will prepare a table in front of your enemies.
Please. Yes.
So God's telling you way back yonder that they had enemies.
Right.
Right. So if they have them, we gonna have them.
Exactly.
So when people, if people will just learn to do this, divorce your emotions, divorce your feelings, and go, who's in charge? President Trump. What is he working with? Laws and orders.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then they won't start speculating on anything because if anybody deserves the credit at the end of the day, it's the commanders in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Always. And that's also in military, the commanders. But guess who always never gets really the credit? There's always someone on the front line down here that gets the awards and the medals. The generals up here, they get forgotten about, but they're the ones that devise the plans. They're the ones that divide, they made the playbook, right? And they get forgotten about a lot. And so if people will learn that, then when President Trump says stuff like April the 2nd, a week and a half ago, it's going to be Liberation Day, they won't start speculating. And then they will learn all the clickbaiters out there who just want clickbait.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them. I've received all kinds of messages this week about that because some are, President Trump's one of them. He's New World Order and he's this and he's that. And I'm like, y'all haven't read it. I mean, we're talking about 9 years worth
Mm-hmm.
of war, battles, missions. Those missions have all those laws and orders. I'm like, there's 9 years worth of straight up validity. And he validated me again. My buddy sent me the video last night, but President Trump's on Air Force One. And they asked him about, the third term. Are you serious about running a third term? See, so all the chatter is coming up about a third term. He goes, well, really, it's a fourth term.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But he's talking about 2028 would be the fourth term. All right. He said, and what he does where he tricks people, he diverts and he goes, I really don't want credit for the second one, though. Biden was terrible. Well, he's talking about a shadow government. He's talking about a government in exile, ladies and gentlemen. When he diverts to Biden, he's not acknowledging that Biden was the president. You
Mm-hmm.
got to know what a government in exile is and a shadow government because there's your 9 year thing. It's been 20, but really 9 visual of the military government and tying into COIN Act. So Eisenhower, President Trump always quotes Roosevelt and Eisenhower.
Yes.
Well, Dwight D. Eisenhower, ladies and gentlemen, was a five-star, rare five-star general. We don't have many five stars. All right. We've had 8 since the Civil War. All
Mhm.
right. 8 five stars. Eisenhower was the supreme commander, though. Supreme commander. All right. He was the top general of all generals. That's what they made him. All right. Eisenhower is the one who established the Presidential Emergency Action Documents. PEDS is it's just acronym. That's what expands the power of a president beyond his terms, which is also a continental government. They go together. Can't have one without the other. They go together. The reason why that's important to add to all this is because Eisenhower was titled a military governor,
Mm.
which is a military occupation. All right, but a military governor, meaning that he wasn't president and he was a wartime president, but they actually call it a military governor, meaning that the government suspended. There's no constitutional government. We're in a military. It'd be like all the veterans out there that know this terminology, and you who you know it because your son and also your husband. All right, it'd be like this. There's some bases in garrison. There's some in wartime,
Hmm.
right? Well, it'd be like making everything wartime in the U.S. with the courts, with the governors, everywhere. It'd be like, all right, you're going to act this way, and people are going to think you are, but I'm the military governor. This is what's going to happen. And they worked it from the top down, the clean out. This time, it really should be the bottom up, but because so many Americans have no idea what's going on.
Right.
So something as simple as April the 2nd, the coolest part of it is we're resetting history. Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 of your Constitution. I saw now I know that some of these are actors, but it is funny to bring it up if people are looking and they're still in the normal mode. But Bernie Sanders put a post up the other day and he was telling President Trump, you need to actually read the Constitution. And I'm
Right.
like, you know, the people who really follow Bernie though, and think that he's legit and real and all that other stuff though, that's so humorous because I mean, President Trump has gone to the T of the Constitution, to the
Yeah.
capital C of the Constitution. All right. But guess what that means? It requires you knowing the Constitution too to know that, right? That's the only way you can get discernment and validity is by knowing it yourself
Right. Do
and
the
then knowing the what we call in the Bible the fruits of labor, right? Well, if you don't know what labor looks like, you're not going to know what the fruits of it looks like, the harvest looks like. You're not going to know that, right? The fruits of the Spirit. If you don't know the Spirit, you're not going to know the fruits of it,
That's right.
right? So, old Bernie said that. Well, Article 1 is your legislative branch, Article 2 is your executive, and Article 3 is your judicial. All right. And so while that Coin Act is so important, is people don't realize the legislative and executive, they're elected by us.
Hmm.
But the president appoints, he's the one that appoints all the judges, which
Right.
is why Marbury versus Madison is so important.
Hmm.
A law that's repugnant to the Constitution is void. President Trump could walk in today, tell every Supreme Court justice, every district, every court of appeals, all of them, all the way down. You're fired. Pack
Right.
your bags and go home.
Right.
And he could say, with no pay.
Didn't Mike
Like,
Johnson
meaning,
basically say that too, right?
yeah, oh, yeah, he can. He can say, he could even say, like, people who think you get oh, well, you got to pay me till the end of the year. No, I don't. I don't have to do that because that's what the founders established. And when you go read the Federalist Papers, which President Trump and all of his Supreme Court cases that he has dockets right now, Federalist Papers are listed in them. All
Wow.
right. And it shows like Federalist Paper number 65 is one of them, and 47 is one of them. And I think 35, maybe the other one, but still, there's a bunch of them. But when you go read the Federalist Papers, what people need to see is that those founders made every branch separate from each other.
Hmm.
All right, for certain reasons. That way, one didn't overpower the other, and things of this
Right.
nature, or they get in there and they had too much power. I mean, there's a lot of variables. The reason why that's important to the Coin Act, I know people keep thinking, well, what's the Coin Act? What's the Coin Act? What's April 2nd, the Coin Act? You got to know the legislation first, right?
Hmm.
You got to know that. And so many people don't think about Where's dollars come from? Where's the money come from? People just think, see, it's like motor skills. When we're born, we just know how to swallow and we know how to chew. We know that because it's just a God-given ability. But when someone older has a stroke and
Mm,
that motor skill goes away, right? They get panicky or anxiety kicks in and all kinds of things because you remember that you could do it, but you forget how to do it. All
right.
right.
Mm,
Well, go back to panic mode, what we are just talking about a while ago.
mm-hmm.
People just expect the dollar to be there. They don't know where the dollar's printed. They don't know who created the dollar. They don't know who's basically the accountants of our nation accounting for that dollar. And our dollar got to where it was being used between New Zealand and China and never, I mean, going back and forth with them, well, it's got a serial number on it. Well,
Right.
we didn't account for all those dollars. So what did our people do? Our dumb, incompetent bureaucrats. They just printed more money,
Right.
right? Well, people got to realize that they established a system where, based on population years ago, et cetera, you print X amount of money and then it's supposed to recirculate, recirculate, recirculate. We can't recirculate it when other nations are using it with each other.
Right.
And then we just keep reprinting, reprint, reprint. And then what do they do? Tax, 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 tax.
Come
That's how
on.
they were getting it. And they were making your dollar worth a quarter or your dollar worth a dime, right? The
Right.
dollar wasn't worth a dollar. So see, the Coinage Act was the April the 2nd, 1792. There's your correlation, April the 2nd. That's when they made silver the lawful tender. So like the silver dollar.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And it also they started doing the gold, right? Well, they had this formula that they made up. It's all man made. Everything we have is man made. And X amount of gold equaled a dollar. So every dollar that was printed, there was X amount of gold that backed it. And then if the dollar, something happened to it, whatnot, then you had gold to back. And then you have a what? A form of barter. If
Mm-hmm.
you got in trouble with somebody going, okay, we owe you, but we got this in gold. Here's, 23 million pounds of gold or whatever. Right. And so that's hard for people to fathom because they're not used to the old school system and
Right.
how that came forward. All right. And so many people don't realize that. But here's the real tie-in. This is what's cool about it. This is so fun. So during the month of January 2021, when everybody was like chaos, all the 35,000 troops rolling into DC, and it looked like martial law, which it was, but it looked scary to a lot of people. They go, 35,000 troops, oh my God, and all that. Then J6 and all the other stuff that was going on had everybody. There's an old Charlie Daniels song, if I may just say it. It does have a slang word, but you just got it. It's so funny because Charlie was a Christian, but he had this song called Uneasy Rider, where he went in this bar in the middle of nowhere and there's bikers were in there and he made one of them mad. And the biker was like, I'm going to get you, boy. And he eased out. He's like, oh, just hold on. And he eased out and he got in his vehicle and he said, they all come running out. And his song tells that. You just see it painting this picture. He said, I just couldn't help it. I made one pass around, came back around. He said, I had them all out there stepping and fetching like their heads were on fire and their asses were catching, right? And and then I think he even hit one of their bikes, and just took off. Well, that's kind of the same thing that I always like to correlate, the chaos. They
Right.
had everybody's heads going everywhere.
Oh yeah.
But on January the 1st, they changed the date too. What's funny is my book has January the 15th, but they changed the date. I'm like, I'm gonna have to prove that somehow. But they moved it to January the 1st for the publication date. It still don't matter, it was January. But January the 1st, 2021, FEMA, under the Federal Continuity Directive 1 and Federal Continuity Directive 2, they had all these publications.
Mm-hmm.
They put out a publication on January the 1st, 2021. Well, that's 25 days after December the 7th, 2020, which was President Trump's Executive Order 13961, called the Federal Mission Resilience Strategy, which is the continuity of government for the executive branch.
Mm-hmm.
So 25 days later, FEMA, they're putting out this continuity directive, another publication and it's called the Reconstitution of the Executive Branch.
Wow.
Section 2.3 in it says when Congress cannot establish the seat of government in Washington, D.C., Congress and their enumerated powers will get with the states to reestablish a new seat of government. When you go read the Coin Act, ladies and gentlemen, it will tell you the mint, so the lawful tender, the mint, seat of government was established in Washington, D.C.
Huh.
See, so our dollar, our form of currency, the previous one was in Philadelphia, which was, so seat of government. So now tie that in. Tie in what took place January 2021. People thought that J6, the left thinks J6 was real. The right says, oh, la, 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 2020 was stolen. They don't realize, again, the operation. So a lot of liberals, I like to pick on liberals because you can right now, they look atrocious, but a lot of liberals are atheists.
Right.
But guess what they don't like? They don't like it when Christians cherry pick from the Bible. Well, why are they cherry picking from a military government and occupation? See, they cherry pick that day, and that's all they live on is that day. But Congress broke 3 different laws that day, 3 different sections, Title 3, Title 18, and Title 52, which are in some of President Trump's new executive orders. All right, he just did a new election integrity executive order. It's got Title 3 in there, Title 18, and Title 52. That's the 3 exact laws that Congress broke on January the 6th when they did not dispose of the Arizona votes. There were 2 objections. First time in United States history, 2 objections took place. They're supposed to stop the count, cease count, go into a special chamber, figure out what took place with Arizona. They didn't do that. That's when the quote unquote insurrection took place. See, it was all planned. All right. When they rushed back in, if people remember, Nancy Pelosi goes, I was so distraught because of what took place. But y'all were so distraught that you counted all the votes to Wyoming. Right. You did not do Title 3, Section 15. You didn't dispose of the votes. So that was that. And here's the difference. There's a huge difference in military overthrowing the government lawfully versus certain members of Congress trying to do it. That's treason. Military can do it because our founders, that's why it's important that our founders establish the military first. Yeah. All right. And then the Supreme Court of 2016 clarified, May 2016 in the Military Justice Act, that federal courts and military courts are separate. Why did they do that out of all those years? Why? In May 2016. All right. Very important, because what do you got to have in court? What does court operate with? Laws. So they're telling you federal laws are separate than military laws. And we all know that, those of that know that. The reason why that's important, though, again, January the 6th, Title 18, which is your federal law, that's federal laws and criminal procedures. And then Title 52 is another form of it. But Congress committed treason. But see, the 9-year operation funneled them to where they didn't have any other options but to try stuff. And President Trump and all of the generals and the world leaders knew that just for a little while, the hiccup will look like this until he gets exonerated. And who's going to exonerate him? The left's going to exonerate him. Right. It ain't going to be the Republicans. It ain't going to be generals and people like that. The only people who can exonerate President Trump is the left. You notice the UAW union, who was all against him. Now they're for him. Yes. All right. That article just came out. Bill Maher is going to sit with Kid Rock and President Trump. Bill Maher is he's been anti-Trump, everything. Yeah. Watch it when he turns. Watch it when he turns. What are the left going to do when all of their heroes start turning on them?
Even Steve Harvey. If you've seen just recently, Steve Harvey coming out just saying,
they're all going to
Trump.
They're all going to start, and those are low-level guys still, though. I mean, he's big and famous, but those are low level. We're talking about Obama or someone of that caliber says, I've been with President Trump from day one, and all the people don't realize what unconventional warfare looks like, which requires actors and people who are blending in. That's why I tell people all the time, stop worrying about who's good and bad.
Yeah,
Know who the commanders are. Trust the commanders. The way
that's
you
so
trust your
good.
commanders, how do you trust God? You read his word. All
Yeah.
right. Well, guess what's in place? There's guys like me who can tell you, hey, there is a finite blueprint. That book right there has it in one location. All right. So it's a finite blueprint. Now, without that book, you wouldn't be able to find it easily because it's not just somewhere posted in a chronological. You had to been following it the whole time
Mhm.
and then know what that law meant, what that law meant, and that law and this and that, and put it all together. But it is a blueprint there. It is most definitely. So that's why the liberals look atrocious, and that's why I tell people being a cowboy. Cowboys don't tell you you're cowboys, but you just are. But for people about the cowboy life, look, if you want to ride a bull or a bronc, all right, you want to do the extreme sports, then you got to know two things: the grounds part of it and the buckings part of it. All right, so it's just part of it. So you can't ever complain about, oh, the ground's tough. Oh man, man, I'm getting jarred around. Well, you ain't got to ride the bull. You ain't got to ride the bronc. All right, that's a choice. It's kind of like people when they skydive. You ain't got to skydive. All right, so there was a video the other day. I saw a girl. She was choking. She couldn't catch her breath when she was skydiving,
Oh.
right? And she had the trainer on the back. Well, she couldn't breathe because she didn't read you're supposed to in
Oh.
your mouth, out your nose, in your mouth, out your nose. Well, she's in air, she's choking, and she's like trying to grab her face. And I'm like, and I saw one of the comments, should have been me, but I saw one of the comments said, "Well, you ain't got to skydive though, right? That was your choice,
Right.
right?" So it's kind of like that. If people are interested in knowing what's going on, then you got to know certain things are just part of it. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Then you got to know things that are like, oh, yeah, that's what we want. All the liberals acting like this, what we've done to the liberals, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why, look at liberals, they're screaming, kicking, cussing about Elon and President Trump.
Right.
Hey, what they're screaming about are incompetent bureaucrats who put us in foreign wars all these years we should have never been in. All
Sure.
right. For oil, well, look at the Democrats of the '90s and the early 2000s. They were hardcore, hated George Bush and all them. And
Right.
I don't like the word hate, but dislike's a better
Like.
word. But they should have been disliking it. But
Mm-hmm.
now they're praising those people. So
Mm-hmm.
when they say, "Oh, Elon," and "Oh, Elon this," and "Oh, Elon that," and all that, and then Ukraine, it's like, "Oh, you guys are actually Ukraine's the one that's prolonged this thing. It's not Russia, right?" And so you just gotta show people that look, we flipped the narrative on them. They're supporting the very things they used to be against. So
Right.
see, they don't even realize that the narrative's flipped on them. But reason why that's good is because it may be someone that some handle or some person in your town, and you go, "Whoa, I did. They used to be this, and now they're this." Well, guess what they just did? Red X right on their forehead for you to go, nope. If they run for any office, they run for town council or this, that.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, they don't get my vote. And then because we have such a movement going on, you go tell your friends and family, hey, they were used to be this and now they flip flop. And there's some things you just don't flip flop with. There's some things that are just aren't flip floppable, I guess be the right term for it. Right. There's some things you just can't flip on. All right. Some things you got to have a foundation with. There's some things that can change and you can go, oh, there's some things that just are foundational that don't change.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the tie-in though to that Coin Act, and it's the seat of government. So I tell people, why did President Trump? He's never lived in Texas. All right. Why
Mm-hmm.
did President Trump file through the United States Supreme Court of Texas
Right.
versus the states of Michigan, Wisconsin, so the swing states of 2020?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why did the FDIC move to Texas? Why was Texas the first state to pass the gold digital currency? When you start adding it up, it sounds like there's going to be a new seat of government.
Right.
Sounds like there's going to be a new capital somewhere,
And
and it
tech.
ain't going to be Washington D.C.
Right.
No.
Exactly. I had this word that the Lord gave me in regards to Washington, D.C. basically it was, if you live there, sell your property now because it wasn't going to be worth, what it should be worth because of what was
Well, and the
happening.
other thing they did too, they gave them electoral votes this time around.
Mm,
So, DC, I know it's hard for people to comprehend, and it is because it's man-made and it's just kind of like just like when we cross into state lines, there's not an actual painted state line unless they paint the road, you
right,
know.
right.
But, and unless you've traveled a lot like I have, you can kind of tell the terrain difference. Yes, because some states you can just see that terrain difference. But again, you know, the the I was trying to forget where I was going with that. What were we talking about?
We were just
I
talking
just drew a blank.
about Texas and DC and
Oh yeah, well, okay. I'll start all over with that. Yeah. We'll just cut that out maybe and then you pick up right here. So a lot of people will have trouble figuring out that, DC is a foreign territory. So,
yes.
you know, our people, our ancestors, whoever, they established this in the 1870s.
Hmm.
And it's like if you probably can't see it on my phone, but you can pull it up literally on the flight app and you can see the little square, and you can probably see it on just your regular map, the little highlighted square around DC.
Right.
And I tell everybody that's why, and I'm not ashamed to say it. And I actually had a conversation recently with someone that was a J6er, and they
Okay.
came up to me and they said, I've heard you say, this and this and that and that and that. And I said, well, I'm not backing down from that for one reason. If I ever go against fundamentals, but also laws and orders, and then also just straight up what military knows, then I'll look wishy-washy. And I'm not that kind of person. But I'm
Right.
like, I said, I know it's hard to fathom that DC is a foreign territory, but that's what they established it as.
Hmm.
That's what the setup is. And when you enter there, you're in a foreign territory.
That's right.
And then you go by their foreign, they got a seal, they got their own motto, they have their own constitution in DC. A lot of people don't know that. All right. So when I said, when you went on federal property, you were already in a foreign territory.
Mm.
So when you went down there willingly, you made that choice. And when you made that choice, guess what you got to do? If it, like my dad always said, if you get caught with the wrong crowd, well, why were you there in the first place? All
Hmm.
right. So even if you prove your innocence that you just got caught in the wrong place, guess what you still got to do? You got to go through the process of proving that. All
Right.
right. And like I told them, I know it was all a military operation and they funneled the deep state, and the deep state did their last. It's like a porcupine or a skunk. They have mechanisms when they feel their last threat,
Yeah, that's
then
right.
the conch, the spikes, whatever you want to call them,
Right.
or the skunk sprays you because
Right.
that's their last form of defense.
Right.
All right. And so that's what the deep state did that day. They got funneled in and they knew the only thing they could do was just confuse the people. All right. And make President Trump look a certain way. It was a retaliation. That's what that's called. All right. So, now I have reason to believe that that still could have been all part of it too from another manner. I mean, it was all set up. But again, either way, retaliation, real time, or set up, it still has military law around it to back it,
Right.
to validate it, and also exonerate the people who did it. All right. So either way it comes out, doesn't matter. But again, DC's a foreign territory. So those J6ers, they went down there willingly. President Trump said, hey, disperse and go home. He gave a proclamation. They didn't do that. All
Right.
right. And they walked into a setup.
Hmm.
And when you walked into the setup, in order to not blow the cover of the setup, you had to be treated the same way. Then some people can say, well, why would they not just let them go somewhere down here? I'm like, well, because they would talk. Oh, I was only in there a week and they let me out, or I was in there a few days and they let me out, and you had a lot of them. So, people would have been like, oh, so they didn't go by the law. So see, the one moment that President Trump and the military don't go by the law, guess what the left will do? Void,
Right.
because they're the loudest barkers. They're not the brightest crayons in the box, but they're the loudest barkers, right? So the moment that you don't do one thing by laws and orders, and President Trump's over here going, I'm a law and order, law and order, law and order. The moment you let people out, then it would have looked even worse that, oh, it was an insurrection, and oh, they let them go, they get all scot-free, and this, that, and other, even though an insurrection is not unconstitutional. And
Mhm.
our founders even talk about the insurrection as a last form of defense. But because the majority of the population don't know that,
Right.
President Trump, they had to go by laws and orders.
Mm.
So if you don't want to listen to the commander, I'm sorry, you have to face the consequences.
Right.
Uh, and that's what happened with that. But DC is a foreign territory, has its own law, constitution, motto, seal, everything. And a lot of people just don't know that. And it's crazy as it is. It does sound crazy, and it is crazy in a lot of ways. But that shows you their establishment back then to seek a different form of control. And
Right.
it shows the Vatican, London, and DC,
Mm.
your
That's right.
triad, and that's why they showed Joe Biden. It wasn't just Joe Biden receiving the funeral service that day, it was the monarchy. That was a signal that the monarchy's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why also, what are the coincidences now? The people, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Here they come. I can hear them out there. What are the coincidences that King Charles is having major health issues, cancer, and the Pope at the same time?
Right.
And Joe Biden received a funeral service on January the 20th.
Right. Come on. Wow. Straight up. I look at all the what's going on, even with the judges, and to me, it was just a flat out sign to everybody because that's not their jurisdiction to tell the commander in chief, President Donald Trump, that you cannot have these, illegals fly out. That's not their jurisdiction. So it's showing again, the laws and orders. This isn't the law. What you're doing, you're going against the military law and order. So, I mean, it's like, I don't know, you must be blind if you're not seeing this, but a lot of people don't understand that.
And that's what's great about it is it's reteaching people that maybe once knew and forgot, but
That's
then it's educating people who had no clue. Because at the end of the day, there's two things that Americans, I believe, majority of Americans, we'll just go with a majority. We won't put a number on it, but there's two things most Americans will agree to. They love the military and they love children,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, military, when people hear that, they'll instantly go to their dad or mom or brother, sister, or son, daughter that served or cousin, whatnot. But you got to think of the whole picture. You got to look at all military. You got to look at the generals and the chain of command all the way down. Then you got to look at the divisions and then, your brigades, your battalions, your batteries, your units, etc. There's so many parts of the military. So when people hear military, sometimes it gets kind of disembobulated because it's like it's just one little word. But then you got to think of every little intricate detail of it, all the different jobs in the military, all the different ranks in the military, then all the certain commands, the 11 combatant commands, and where they are. So when you think of every intricate big picture, are you going to say the whole military's lying when they say, hey, we've been in the military government, we've been in the military occupation, saving America, saving the world, liberating this and doing it? No, they're not. They're not going to do that. So when you hear lawyers out there and judges, like
Mm.
the lawyer recently at some law school is complaining already, which is great. It's what you want. A lawyer's complaining, we've been teaching law all these years, and then they telling us we got to change. Who's they? The only person who can be telling them that are the military. All right, meaning a higher authority that says you're going to do this or there's consequences. All right. And then it does show people Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. Article 1 and 2, once again, are your legislative and executive. We elect them. That's our representatives and our president and vice president. We elect them, ladies and gentlemen. The president appoints them. When they, the judges, do not do what the Congress and the president says, then guess what that tells you? They're not doing the will of us because we voted them in. And
Right.
we expect them to put in the judges that do what? What we want, right?
Mhm.
What we see fit, no matter what it is. All right. So that's why it should be a bottom up. But because so many on the bottom don't know simple three branches of government and simple functions of government, it had to be from the top down. And that's why I tell people, anybody out there, if you hear veterans, that Veterans for Trump, Veterans Against Trump group out there, they are all DD 214 and no laws and orders. And it requires someone like me who's a veteran to say that to them. All right, because they ain't going to listen to a civilian. But
Right.
all these people, when you hear, it's a small group of them. It's like Dan Scavino says, don't let 10% make you think they're the 90. They're not. But they bark the loudest, which that tells the 90% what you got to do. Not only bark louder, but you got to know what you're talking about to squash that 10. And then we got to get a portion of that 10 to go, oh, I had no idea what I was talking about. I am a good person and I don't want to be ostracized and alienated. I'm a good person. I had no idea. And we recruit them over to do their what? Pull their weight and pull their share where they're supposed to be in their friends, families, towns, communities, neighborhoods, etc., cities, states, and even government. All
Right.
right. Because the federal government was never supposed to look like this. It was never. And if you go back and read about the Federalists and Anti-Federalists, they all had different ideas. They all thought differently. All
Mm.
right. So what President Trump and them have done is kind of integrated different mindsets of all of our founders, but not making it completely federalism and completely anti-federalism, which be states. All right. So they've integrated so much because we have evolved. We have gotten to a new place. And Elon said it the other day, it's a revolution. And a
Mhm.
lot of people don't realize we can always reestablish new parts of the Constitution, et cetera. We can do that because our founders did it. We had the Magna Carta before that. They had other forms of documentation, so they did it. But our founders were perfect, almost perfect with everything. There's a few little discrepancies there, but they were almost perfect with everything, given where they were with population and the mindsets then. It for 243 years to look pretty identical. The electoral college, you think about the electoral college worked back then without computers, without technology, and it works even better with it. All right. And so when you think how genius they were, or Thomas Jefferson, Declaration, one person, he was the main author. James Madison, main author of the Constitution. So that's two guys right there out of 2.3 million population back then that wrote what we stand on today.
Yes.
And then your signers of the Declaration, the 56. And so it wasn't that many people,
Right.
right? So when you think of our legislation and you think of our literature, so that Federalist Papers, all those things and how they tie in, I encourage people to go read the Federalist Paper. It's boring, it's long and boring, but it will paint a picture of what President Trump, they're trying to integrate so much there that where, like our founder said, the Constitution wasn't supposed to be so rigid you couldn't think outside the box. It's just a guideline to go by. And then your common sense. President Trump talks about common law and common sense, right? And that's what it's going back to. So when you think of a lawyer out there who's already complaining, that means the military. Military is telling them. And military is the only way we could have done this because military and our founders made it to where military can overthrow the government, but not someone acting in a treasonous way for their own agendas and their own little groups, etc. All right. So that's why when you look at the definition under Special Operations Command, ladies and gentlemen, your Special Operations Command, there's a core activities page you can go to and see all the definitions of the different kinds of warfare. Unconventional warfare specifically tells you it is an act to coerce, disrupt, or overthrow the government, all right, or an occupying power. So, and it tells you in unconventional warfare, our writing and our literature in the military, but on special operations tells you that no other person can do that, though. If there's an actor out there trying to do it on their own, we can identify that and wipe them out. All right. So it tells you our military, that's again, President Trump's in charge of Article 2. And that's where the founders left it kind of open. Article 1, your legislative, they declare the war, Congress. Article 2, your president is commander in chief of the Army and the Navy. That's in the Constitution. Well, that's broad. But see, back then, they weren't arguing about are you a boy or a girl, Francine. They weren't sitting there going, well, what am I going to be this morning? You know, I mean, you have to be graphic for some people. So, oh, I mean, if you brought my grandfathers back and said, "Hey, we don't worry about taxes and all this," we got people who can't identify if they're male or female. They would be like, they would jump back in the grave and cover themselves up, like literally, you
Right.
know. So when you look at our founders, they they weren't having problems like that, and I don't consider that a problem. They are the problem. I don't consider it a problem, but they didn't have those issues.
Right.
They were too busy trying to farm and blacksmith and merchants and stores and all lawyers and but the right kind, right? They were just trying to live life, right? Have kids, have families, and live life,
That's right.
right? And so when you look at that time period, then you look at where we are, these judges, the establishment of your bar. If you go to Google right now, they tell you that's a conspiracy theory that bar doesn't mean British Accreditation Registry. Why is it called a bar exam? What
Right.
does bar mean if it don't mean what it meant when it was established? Like,
Right.
why don't they just drop it and call it a law exam?
Right.
Why is it called the bar exam? It's what's bar stand for, you know?
Yes,
And so
exactly. Exactly.
1870s when that took place, that's when, and it didn't initially, I don't think just overnight just got so overpowered, but through time, these judges and lawyers expanded and expanded and expanded to where they took over the power, right? And then they had their little kickbacks on the backside back here. That's why I love the TV show Matlock when Andy Griffith, but when he goes in there in the back, and it's a show, but it paints a good picture. He goes in the back, the judge and the other attorneys in there, and they're trying to cut a deal. Well, if you
Hmm.
get your client to do this, I'll get mine to do this, and we'll do this. And Andy, no, Matlock's like, no, my guy's innocent, and I'm gonna prove it, right? Well, that's the lawyers we need right there. That's
Amen.
the lawyers we need. He
Yeah.
wasn't trying to cut a deal. Lawyers that what good, bad, or indifferent, whether the person's innocent or not, at least they're fighting to say, "Hey, I'm not making a deal.
Right.
We're not doing this money system back here. No way. I think my client's innocent. Whether the person's innocent or not, that's up to the jury and the evidence, right? But you want a fighter like that that says, "No, I don't. I'm not here for the money. I'm gonna prove my person's innocent," right? Or if it's the other side saying, "I'm gonna prove them guilty," whatever it is. So see, that's the stuff that we got to, and that's the stuff President Trump's talking about with the lawfare. But what's so beautiful about it? Everybody's watched it right in front of your own eyes. I tell everybody, what are the liberals going to do when their heroes start falling off? So Perkins and Coie, they're the ones with the fake dossier.
Right.
President Trump wrote an executive order that was stripping all the security clearances of Hillary Clinton and Joe and Kamala and all of them. Well, guess what Perkins and Coie have done? Oh, we'll work with you, President Trump. Now, all this was planned, but people who think it's in real time, however you got to read it and see it, but it's all been planned. But for the people that see it in real time, that's Perkins and Coie saying, "Hey, we're guilty." A plea deal means you're guilty.
Right.
Plea deal means, okay, we're guilty, but please don't destroy us. We
Mm.
will work with you if you'll let us keep our name and our building and our reputation. All right. Yeah, we'll take a hit for a little while because we did this, this, and that. We'll do whatever we got to do, but we'll work with you. And guess what they've done? They've put up $100 million in free services to veterans and all kinds of veterans, like $100 million. That's saying we're guilty as charged. Yes, our firm handled that, but it wasn't us exactly, right? It was other people working with us. And yeah, we hired these lawyers on. So see, that's showing right there, white flag of surrender. We're guilty. And the more he's already hit some more, Wilmer and Hale or something like that. There's a bunch of others he's already hit. Now they hadn't taken a plea deal yet, but that's what's going to happen. Are they all going to start white flagging it to President Trump, and that's going to show guilt and their guilt. And but it's also exonerating him because now that one shows the fake dossier was fake,
Right.
100% fake. Russia collusion, 100% fake. All right. So everybody's seeing validity, and the lawfare it's but you kind of had to go through it. See, we had to go through this in
Sure.
order to have a reset. And so that's why I try to tell people about the bull and the bronc. Don't worry about the bucking. Don't worry about the ground. That's part of it. Right. So disturbance and turbulence, just like an aircraft, you're going to have turbulence on an aircraft. But once you learn that it's just the aircraft fighting the air resistance like that, you realize it's just part of it. Is it comfortable? Not always. Do you feel like a roller coaster? Sometimes. It feels like you drop 100 feet and you only drop maybe 2 feet. But once you learn it's part of it, then you're good. And so many people, if they would just hang on the commander, and
Yeah.
it's like God,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't matter if the disciple really walked on the water or not. What really matters is what God was showing you with that. That no matter how bad the storms are in your life, no matter the turmoil everywhere, no matter how bad you're being shaken, shook up, and whatnot, if you keep your focus on Him and you believe in Him, He's gonna bring you through it.
Yes.
But you might have been the one who asked for that, right? I don't know you. You might have been someone egging it on, like, I want this car and I want a Corvette, and you can't afford one. You went and bought one, and then you went, what? I got how much for insurance? Well, you wanted a Corvette, so you got to pay for the insurance, right? So you may be one of those who asked for it, and then you get in the storm. You're like, I didn't want this. But it's like, well, you could have drove around the storm if you'd have looked at the weather app, but you didn't, right? So it's kind of like that with people. I
So,
love what's going on because when you know the commander, you
yeah.
know who's in charge, you know what they're working with, then of course, us veterans and some of us have been cast into positions to do this with, at our level, but still, it don't mean we know everything that the commander has up there. It's the same with the military. You could be the most awesome soldier down here, but you still don't know what the battle plan is up here because there's certain ranks that do that. And so, that's why I don't make speculations, but I also can kind of tell where we are with it because what they're putting out daily and what they're saying and what their focus is. And President Trump, that's been an emphasis in a lot of his speeches lately or his interviews as the third and fourth term. So
Yeah.
that tells you they're getting close to a revelation because they're making that more prevalent in conversation and getting that chatter going and getting it going. And, so it's all, you know, I tell people enjoy the show, right? If you're 50 years old and you live to be 80, you're gonna live through it. If you're 40 years old and you live to be 50, you're gonna live through it, right? We're
Yeah.
not far off. So just
We're
relax.
not. Well, another interesting article that I saw just a couple of days ago was the governor of Mississippi and how he said, okay, no more income tax. And I thought, man, that's so awesome because President Trump has been talking about, okay, no income tax on Social Security, no income tax on, tips. And so for me, I saw, oh man, he's given the states the availability to say, okay, you know what? We're not doing taxes here either. Is that like the plan here that each state will take the charge of saying, okay, you know what? Yeah, no more because it is illegal. I mean, it is, but people don't understand that
Also,
part.
there's a few correlations. The Bible talks about wiping your debts every 7 years, right?
Right.
Um, and then the other correlation, I have someone that was texting me this morning in Washington State passed for a tax increase. All right. Well, guess what their states got full of? Liberals,
That's right.
right?
Yes.
And California, same thing. But that is important because of this one reason. That goes back to your Federalist, anti-Federalist, and that integration of, again, you don't want too much federal government. And, you have all the President Reagan's quotes about the federal government, right? And oh, we're here to help. No, they're not. you know. And there was a tweet that someone put up the other day that I screenshot just because I'm like, this is a liberal that I'm gonna pick on, and I don't give their name and their handle. But this shows you. I probably won't be able to find it when I'm looking for it, but it shows you though, and it was something on the lines. I can't find it, but is on the lines of like, oh, they're taking away this and they're taking away that, and they're taking the women's rights away, and they're taking this and they're taking that, and you're taking your freedoms. And I'm like, you people are so polar. You have no clue.
Right.
When it goes back to what I make a joke about. Sometimes you have to be a little risque with your, my analogies to get people to like pay attention. So it's like if you pass a bill for the women. And you say, all right, women, we're going to make y'all in charge, right? And let's say all of you Republican women, conservative women, patriot women are the majority. All right. And we're going to leave it to y'all to be the decision maker, though. Right. Because you're the majority, you're in charge, no male say so. All right. But you're going to be in charge of this new bill and this act that says that, okay, if a guy wants to be a female, you get to decide how he's going to be a female. You know, and y'all all are patriot women and you're Republican women, conservative women. You say, all right, guy, you just got to be a female. You just want to be a female. And you go, you gotta have the surgery, right? And they go, no, 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 no. No, I just have a tendency every now and then. I don't want to get rid of my manhood. I just like to dress in a dress every now and then. And this, no, we're the majority. This is what we read and interpret the bill to be. You already proclaimed and you got photos out on social media that you want to be a female. Guess what? And then you get arrested, put you in a straitjacket, carry you into surgery, chop, chop. Now, that person would call you and your group a dictator.
Right.
Right? Oh, you're taking away my First Amendment and all my rights. No, you wanted this. Y'all wanted this in the federal government.
Right.
Right? And when you put it in the federal government, guess what that means? That means that's all the states collective going, we're all paying for this. Mm-hmm. And well, we're the majority and we interpret this way. This is how we interpret it. We're the majority. We got voted in by the people. We're the majority, and that's what we feel. That's why you don't want stuff in the federal government. So see, when that person, those liberals are saying that, no, you don't want something to be passed in federal government because it does what? It becomes up to interpretation of who's in command, who's in charge, the elected officials. No, you do not want it in the federal government. You really don't want it in the state. But again, you know, it's like I tell people, the people that I know who are gay, they're still gay. They ain't, just because President Trump started going in with DOGE and wiping out all these grants and this, they're still gay. That right. Didn't keep them from being gay, right? So like the rights ain't been taken away. See, they get rights mixed up with grants and Pell Grants and money and supplements and all these other. They get that. No, you don't want it in the federal government. Right. And you can be gay or Buddhist, whatever the heck you are, outside of what this nation was founded on. You can be whatever you want to be still in this nation. It's not going to be taken away from you. Right. And people like me are not going to allow you to get hurt. I'm not going to let someone harm you just because you think differently. But this is how the federal government's going to be. It's going to operate like this, and it's going to be the least amount of stuff that works for all of us, the way it should have been and the way it was when it was established. Same thing with state governments. So these state governments, what President Trump's done is, like he said, the governors are in control of their states. And it should roll the way, you know, Alabama don't need what Texas has. And Texas don't need what Vermont has. And Vermont don't need what Montana has. And, you know, vice versa, everywhere. Right? So, like, the South has hurricanes, the North don't. But the North has snowstorms, the South don't. So you shouldn't be expecting Florida and Alabama, Louisiana to pay for snowstorm damage and stuff up in the northern states, and the northern should be supplementing the southern states with certain things, unless it's such a massive disaster and they all want to help, you know, what the National Guard does and things. But outside of that, on a normal basis, it shouldn't work like that. And there's enough money, especially when the DOGE is doing all the clean out, there's enough money circulating that states can do that. So like I told my friend this morning, endure it, right? You live there, endure it. But your people got to see that. And it kind of goes back to, it's kind of cool because I said this the other day. I said, if I was president, you know, if you're a liberal and you went to the gas pump, when your card went in there, it's gonna tell me you're a Democrat and a liberal and you voted for Obama and you voted for Biden and you voted for Kamala and whoever, you know, and when he's sticking it, it's gonna read that and it's gonna go, oh, you're in the state of Washington, $9.89 a gallon for you, right? If you're a Republican, you're conservative, you stick your card in there, oh, you're $2 and what, or $1.78 for you, right? You go down there, all of you talking about President Trump not lowering the egg costs, you know, within a day or two. You think that's how it works? All of you who complain, you put on social media, same thing. You go down to the Publix or wherever, Kroger or whatever you got, wherever you are, you say, it says, oh, you're liberal Yep, hardcore liberal, like extreme liberal. It's $12.89 for your eggs, right? So it's got to wake people up. So the
Yeah,
people of Washington State and California are going to have to learn how economics works, right? And you're not going to blame. See, that's what's important about President Trump giving the states more powers. Is you're not going to blame the president for this. No, we made it more anti-federalist. Governors in control, blame your governor, blame your legislation out there. They're
right.
going to have to learn how legislation works. And that's how you do that. And I hate it for people that I know personally that live in Washington, but until their majority out there understands how economics works, then they got to have what? A class in economics 101, 102, however far they got to go with it. you
Right.
know.
That's so true. So true. So you agree that each governor will have to make that choice in regards to taxes and so forth, correct?
Well, yeah, and their legislation, and but that again, it depends on also what people are paying attention and they start demanding that.
Yeah.
But I think initially they're going to do it where they do it just because so many people don't know. And that's a big incentive. Obviously, you think of the welfare of our nation, you think of the welfare of people and how strained their dollars been all these years.
Mm.
This is going to be a moment in time where I think it'll be a period of time where you don't have income tax, and then they come up with a flat tax that works for everybody.
Right.
But I
Right.
think it'll be a moment in time where people can breathe and go, "Whoa, what did we just watch?" That's gonna be the revelation part of it. But yeah, I mean, and Mississippi was the last governor to hold out during 2020. He was the one that they called him Tater Tot, I think it's his name or something like that. It's his
Uh-huh.
nickname. Uh, but you know, so that the governors are, and of course, Maine's governor that said what she said against President Trump. She's only got a few more days to do what she's supposed to do by law, and then she's going to be out of there. So
Good.
you know, um, and the president, they could do that during a military government again. And
Mm.
that's why it's important for people to know the military government versus everything else. Um, you know, it's a clean out, and everybody should want to be part of the clean out for history's sake. But there's a
Good.
lot of those rhinos and dinos that they're just in there, their feet are in the concrete basically, and
Right.
they're like, I'm not moving. Well, your
Yeah.
choice.
Yes, exactly. And
Like President Trump told her, enjoy your past life because you're not going to be governor pretty soon.
yeah, so true.
Yeah.
What about like Iran and this whole situation? How does that play into military operations?
Well, people, that's what's funny too. Some of the liberals, the big blue checks who
Mm.
I hope they ought to give me the command of deleting all these people on the internet because I'd be deleting them quick because, and that's part of the Seditions Act, uh, and the Common Decency Act, but Communications Decency Act. But Iran, I saw a person the other day, and I never give their names just because, but it's a big liberal on X, and they're talking about, oh, you Republicans, conservatives, you brag about how President Trump didn't start a foreign war and he started one with Yemen. No, he didn't. That's something that simple. And
Right.
I'm that guy in the comment box going, oh, you done messed up now, Hoss. Like, oh, executive order, national emergency, Obama, Yemen. I'm like, you liberals, like you, of course, whether they see it or not, but a lot of their followers do. And it shows how they don't have a clue what they're talking about. And that's why I tell patriots, get on there and fight. All
Yeah.
right. And show them that but you got to know what you're talking about. So Yemen, the Houthis, well,
Mm.
all of these countries in the Middle East have been infiltrated by Iran and the Houthis and different groups, right? And there's a lot of them in Lebanon, there's a lot of them in Syria, they're all over. Um, so, now that's going to require longevity, but it's
Yeah.
also going to require special operations and special forces because that's just what special forces do. That's the only boots on the ground I can ever see still staying boots on the ground is just your special forces going into like isolated areas and keeping them it because again you can't eradicate evil, so there's always going to be someone who thinks they can beat the system build a population up, and we're going to go against this. So that's where special forces will keep them on a quail, meaning like you can't eradicate evil, but you can keep them suppressed and keep them on a low level. And so, everything that President Trump had to do from the start, I mean, look at that. See, this is where people with a brain know this, but the liberals, that's why you just got to put them off to the side and go, they don't even know what they're even yelling and cussing about. But people with a brain can see all the chaos around the world. All right. And if you know anything about the currencies, like we talked about, and our currency here and here and here, and then the yen and the won and all these different things that were, all right, it's just chaos. That's just your financial alone. Then you get into the Middle East. There were problems in Syria, Lebanon. I mean, we could sit here and name all day. There's some countries people don't even know about, like Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan and all these places. People don't even know about them. And those are more of your terrorist
Hmm.
places because they're more isolated, they're landlocked, they're up in the high country, as they call it out there. Um, and they can harbor more terrorists than anybody. So there's a lot of places that people just don't know about and things that were going on. So when you think of what President Trump had to do from the start, balancing America out, keeping people somewhat happy because naturally people were ruffled for all kinds of reasons.
Oh
All
yeah.
right. And you get it because it's like, but you got to know what's been taking place. So
Sure.
all the balance he had to do, then you had to do what? What's priority? And then work your way down. And you'll hear people out there, the Q people and all the different people talking about how, oh, Israel's last. It's
Hmm.
not because it's last because of whatever, but it's just because of God's country and God is leading this. God's like the Spirit is leading this whole thing, and He's kind of shifted and shuffled everything around to where things, fell into place for the people who are part of the Spirit,
Yeah.
right? And so President Trump, I tell people, you can judge all day long, but the man became a Christian. All right, now is he
Oh yeah.
perfect? No. Is he going to say some words he said before? Yes. All
Mhm.
right. He's just, but they're operating on priority list. All
Gotcha.
right. And so Yemen and some of these places now, I believe, now I'm not there, but I believe a lot of that's already taken place. A lot of it's just some of videos and et cetera of when they did it, and
Sure.
it's looking real time and looking live time.
Oh yeah.
Um, because unless you're there, you're not gonna know that. But you know, bombing at this time right now, it you know, wouldn't be good or bad, but at the same time, it wouldn't be bad. But I just think a lot of that's already happened, and
Hmm.
that's your revelation of, hey, we're we're reaching the final stretches. Israel, the Jews, Christianity, Christ. President Trump moving to Jerusalem, moving the capital. That was a big deal.
Oh
Very,
yeah.
very, very big deal for people. So I think a lot of that's already happened. But even if it was live time, they're just wiping out all of these evil radicals.
Yeah.
Who look, people have to remember this. These men are like dogs. All right. They have been trained from a child up. They don't know anything else but to hate America, to hate Christianity, to hate Jews. They don't know anything else.
Hmm.
And it's sad because if you can ever get to a place where you can quell that a little bit, meaning like stifle that, get it down to that low level, and then get to those people, right? Those leaders, some of them will change, some of them won't. But if you just keep it suppressed down here versus letting it build up, but if you can get it down here, then some of those will not
Right.
seek to do evil, all right? Because they've been trained from a baby up to hate America, to hate Jews, and to hate Christianity and Christians. So they've been trained that way. And
Yes.
everybody knows when if you grew up a diehard certain kind of fan, it's hard to break that. It's
Yeah.
hard to break it because you'll say, well, my grandpa was, or my dad was, and my mom was, or like you have this connection, right? This lineage. All right. Well, it's the same thing with them. And it's hard it sucks to have to use that terminology that's, oh, it's a lineage. But it is. They've been trained from a baby up. That's why they put
Sure.
bombs on them.
Right.
Right. And that's all they know right here. So when your brain, that's all you know, there's a psychology when you're wired right here and that's all you know is the hate and to oh, you go commit this crime, you're going to get 40 virgins or this, that, and other. You're going to paradise. Like when you've been trained that, it
Yes.
don't matter how crazy it sounds. When you've been trained that all the way up, they don't know any different.
Right.
All right. And so that's why you got to eradicate. And President Trump, he gets it done quick. Like he said, get in, get out. It's unfortunate. But they did this.
Right.
Obama, Bush, and Clinton, those are the executive orders. When was Yemen? When, so he established a lot of these groups. They established a lot of these groups.
Mm.
And they kept the little battle games going themselves, I mean, because you really think about it. At the end of the day, you really think about it. Here's a lot of these people who don't have technology, don't operate technology. All right. And you're telling me they were a threat to us? And it goes back to all these other nations. If they're a threat in their nations, look
Hmm.
at Afghanistan. Those Afghanis, all the guys that I served with that were trainers, that were training Afghanis to try to get them to fight for their nation, they didn't want to fight for their nation.
Right.
They, the liberation side, they didn't want to train to liberate. They're lazy. They don't want to fight. They didn't want us there. So why in the heck are we there? Right. So again, were they a real threat? And then when you get there, they didn't want to fight for their own nation. So if American men and women didn't want to fight for this nation, where would we end up? It
Mm.
wouldn't be pretty. So apply that everywhere else. They have to want to fight for their nation. We can't be the world's police for stuff, and some of it wasn't even world's police for the right reasons. Again, a lot of it was
Sure.
prefabricated, and they made up all this stuff. And it's like that's why President Trump, he's not alluding or tipping his hat to Bush. He's giving everybody a calm in that. When he says at least get the oil when you're there, he's saying that they weren't even getting the oil when we were there. So, that whole 9/11 thing, when all that truth unveils in history, I don't know when they're going to unveil all that, but see, people have to be accepting of it.
Yes.
And it can't be small groups. They got to get it to where majority of Americans are going, whoa, this is what took place. So it's got to be appreciative. And I know there's a lot of patriots listening who would be, but you're not the majority yet.
Right.
Right. Even a lot of Republican conservatives are not going, whoa, what happened with 9/11? Oh my God, it was rigged or oh, it was this.
Yeah.
They're not doing that.
Right.
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 But you also have to make sure that they don't rebel in another kind of way and go, y'all all knew this whole time and you didn't do anything. Can't do it that way either. So it has to be real delicate to show that, well, this is the war that's been going on with the alliance. This
Yes.
is what's been going on the
Mm.
whole time.
Yeah.
So they had to do what? Unveil the lawfare. They had
Mm.
to unveil all these law firms that have been involved with it, all these lobbyists that President Trump's been whacking and Exxon, and all these defense contracts. Headsets just got rid of, I think, 500 million or $300 million worth of defense contracts.
Right.
So and President Trump said that in his speeches. He said lobbyists and defense contractors are the worst because they make
Yeah.
excuses to keep us in foreign wars because they're making money.
Right.
All right. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of them. It's not like it's a massive majority. It's a small group of people compared to the majority, but they're still the ones controlling the shots back here and getting in the ears of the
Mhm.
what? Controllable and purchasable career politicians going, hey, if you'll pass this bill, get your buddies to do this, I'll give you a $3 or $4 million. I'll give you 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have politicians. Dick Cheney, $90 million.
Wow.
Liz Cheney, his daughter, alone, 19 million.
Wow.
How and where?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Mm.
President Trump, he was a businessman before. And even though Mitt Romney was a rhino, at least if there was one good thing to say about Mitt, he was a businessman before. All right. Doesn't mean he was smart and good, but again, there's some that's been businessmen before. All
Sure.
right. And they had businesses and whatnot. They sold but majority of them,
Nope.
they ain't never done that.
AOC and oh yeah, forget about it. Yeah, a bartender, AOC, yeah, and she's making
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, come on now. Before we head off, what do you see in the next couple of months?
Well, tomorrow, obviously, April the 2nd, the liberation, a lot of people think it's going to be like this everybody think there's going to be like this stoppage day where like the world stops and stands still and they just go. "Mm." No, it's a rolling operation, meaning like if you're paying attention and know what's going on, it's rolling. Now, 10 years from now, if someone didn't know what happened and they still didn't know, then my book's going to be the only thing that's going to be like that because it's a rolling operation, meaning validity comes weekly and daily, depending
Yeah,
on what you know and what you're watching. President Trump validates me daily and weekly with everything.
right.
But it's not about validating me. It's just because I know what the operation is.
Yeah.
So the validity is just always there. And if I didn't know what I knew, in 10 years from now, you could go back and the validity would still be there because the laws and orders are there
That's
in the
right.
operation in the military. But, he mentions May, he talks about Memorial Day. He's been mentioning Memorial Day
Mm-hmm.
and July 4th, 2026, the last like 2 years. He's
Yes.
made those as your big like cursors of going, mark that date, mark that. He's been saying that again for like 2 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Memorial Day 2025,
Yep.
you know. And so obviously we're only a little over, which I guess technically it's 2 months away because it's the end of May. But uh, you know, it's I think obviously there's going to be the people are going to start seeing the monetary system, the taxes and things. Obviously your gas and your food and et cetera. Some start coming back where it's supposed to be, and then maybe some revelation of Texas and certain things. I don't know. President Trump has a lot of Supreme Court cases too that are docketed. So a lot of his stuff that he's uh, Fox News has been saying, I don't watch Fox for certain reasons, but I watch it for other reasons for this thing. What they're saying on the surface is what's leading to what you know on the bottom, like what the foundation is. So one of the Fox News people recently they've been saying is he kind of doing certain things on purpose to get the Supreme Court to respond? Bingo. Because if you go look over in the Supreme Court docket cases, you type in Donald J. Trump,
Mm-hmm.
he's got a ton of petitions in. All right. So they've yet to be addressed. They've yet to be heard. All right. So yes, there's going to be some form of revelation through the judicial branch at the Supreme Court level. And that's why I think he's also been hard on Roberts and Comey because those were his nominees, right? But if they went in there and they were always for President Trump, that would show bias,
Sure.
right? Sure. And so they got to be, that's why people need to realize is that it's not supposed to be that president's Supreme Court and this president's Supreme Court and they're supposed to have there's 9 justices, right? They're human. All right. They voted in for lifetime. All right. They can be removed though, again, but takes a certain kind of precedent to do that. But I think that's why he's been hard on them for the average person out there.
Mm.
If they do what they're supposed to do, well, they are doing that, and they're showing people that balance that's supposed to be there. All
Right.
right. It's not supposed to be unbiased all the time. And we've had that for a lot of times. We've had Supreme Courts that act on behalf of a certain president or this president or that president or this president. So it's got to be the resetting of everything. So I think what people call turbulence, I'm calling the resetting. Like you got to want that. All
Yeah.
right. So don't get in the negative side. Go to the laws and orders and see what the grand play is. The grand play is the president goes through the White House doors, the Merle Haggard song, and does what he says he'll do. Well, President Trump's the first to do it. All right. But every president, when they get in, they're not supposed to spend the first 2 years unraveling everything the last president just did. It's supposed to be cohesive and always rolling operation. All right. And if there's something comes up with all the states or a few of the states or one state that needs to be changed on federal, then it needs to replicate what our founders did, a continental Congress, not career politicians sitting there all the time going, what do we need to write next, boys? How can we screw the American people over this time? We don't need that. Right. So that's why you limit federal, kick it to the states, open up President Trump's new executive order, just I think yesterday, one of them was talking about the regulations. have constrained the economy. But again, they couldn't go in and just start whacking everything. They got to go in and unravel it delicately. That way, it don't create other things. It takes time. So that's another thing he'll start doing is taking off all these regulations, pulling all these back. And it's going to open up small business and big businesses. Businesses will be able to breathe a lot more. So there's a lot of things he's doing. I mean, like I said, he's like having a girlfriend. All right, it truly is. It's like he's it's hard to keep up, right? So a lot of you out there, when you fresh in a relationship, like you're like, oh, hey, can I buy you a drink? Can I go do this? Can I get you some this and then that and this and that and this? Hey, what are you doing today? What are you doing tonight? You want to see me this weekend or you want to see me tonight? Whatever, how about both? Right? And you're just like, President Trump's he's got like 50 truths, it seems like, in the last like 2 hours, like where it's just like, it's just boom, 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 right? And every one of them has a correlation to a law somewhere, somehow, right? And so that's what's going on right now. And he's hitting them so hard,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and unraveling so much stuff. So that's what's taking place. And it is hard. It's a lot. It's hard to consume sometimes, right?
Yes.
Uh, so it does carry over to real life because a lot of you are married listening and you've been married for 20, 30, 40 years, and you're like, where's your husband today? I don't know. He's probably out fishing somewhere. I don't know, and you're so like relaxed in life. President Trump, 78 going, bam, 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 bam. He's hitting them so hard. And that's what's so beautiful about it is that in the real time, he has unraveled so much stuff, regulations, crap, taxes, this, currency set. They've reset everything that he's done. They've done such a clean out that the liberals think about it. It took them all these years for these bureaucrats to build that up. And
Right.
he's unraveled it in such a short time that now you're aware and you'll be aware. And what you can learn, you can know and be a part of it, right? And they won't be able to do they won't be able to do it now because so many people are awake and appreciative and will be appreciative. The rest that aren't will
Mm.
be. There'll be so much in that majority that will be. Liberals and Democrats won't be able to do anything. They're really going to have to reestablish a new party. They may even change the name of their party because it's happened through history.
Sure.
People think that's always been around. It hasn't. In the early days, there was the Republican Democrat Party, Republican dash Democrat.
Hmm.
So like there's been multiple parties. So you're watching a true revolution. And it's also a revelation of the Bible. I believe that God's cleansing the earth, and he's I don't know, I'm one of those that grew up Pentecostal and they believe that I'm gonna be sitting right here and then the Lord comes back and I'm gonna go shoot
Yes.
right out of this chair.
Amen.
Now, it may be, but if it's not, if
Yeah.
it's like some of my Hebrew friends says the word rapture just means a new beginning.
Yes, that's
Whatever it
me
is,
too. Hey, it don't
whatever it
matter to me
is.
either, honest to goodness, because you
Like
know
I
what?
tell people,
I'm not
guess what?
focused on that.
Well, guess what? We're not in control of that anyway. Only
That's
God
right.
knows how he does that
Amen.
anyway.
That's
And
right.
so what God does tell you in his word is that you got to tarry until I do come back. However he comes back doesn't matter. Tarry, meaning work, do what you're supposed to be doing, pull your
That's
part,
right.
work your load. If a man don't work, he don't eat. The Bible says all these things, right?
That's right.
So, like I was saying the last time, how can you expect to inherit the kingdom of God if you don't fight for it?
Amen.
Right? God wants to see fighters. He wants to see workers. He wants to see doers. And
Right.
it don't matter what little part you're doing. It don't matter if you just know one little line of one law. It doesn't matter. Do your part somewhere, somehow, but always give 10% more than what you think you got. It's kind of like people who work out. Right when you feel you can't do another push up, try to do five more. Try to do one more. Try to do whatever, just extra.
That's
And so President Trump has hit them so hard. He's like, he is literally like Foreman and Iron Mike and all of them in the ring at one time,
yeah.
just waylaying.
That's
Um,
so true.
so, you know, we're going to the golden era and it's going to take a little time, but I just think that, the month of April we got Easter. It's going to be a lot of reflection of
Mm.
what President Trump, I think that there's a correlation with that. And President Trump knows that.
Yeah.
And all this is still divinely inspired anyway. So God's still the ultimate author of that. And I think that somehow it's going to be a correlation with Easter and God and Christ with President Trump and all the stuff that's unveiled. And uh, again, all these law firms are folding. So I mean, everybody's watching the chains being broken,
Amen.
right?
Yeah.
And
So
that's what
powerful.
everybody's witnessing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's
so
awesome. It's awesome. Wow. Are you ready to thrive in 2025? Well, I wanted to share something with you real quick. The product is called, yes, Fix. That's right. It's a groundbreaking product that allows your body to function as God created it to. It's utilized by the hops plant as well as purified water. Those are the only ingredients. It helps you not only lose weight, but it helps your other organs in your body function as they should, as well as getting rid of the dangerous visceral fat. If you want more information, just go ahead and click the link below, or you can email me and I'll send you the information. You can email me at upfrontintheprophetic@gmail.com. Let's thrive together because this is a whole new kingdom era and we're doing it. Amen. Yeah, and I think I'm going to sneak this in. Any before we head off because I have another broadcast in about a half hour. But what's your thoughts about this whole the Iraqi dinar and the currencies out there? There's a lot of shuffling going on. What's your thoughts about that? Is that something that you see on the forefront soon or? What are you thinking?
well, it correlates with it goes back to the Indo-Pacific Agreement, even with when Pompeo, even though President Trump, they've already, exposed a lot of that. But again, it shows people when
Yeah,
you use certain when people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, but then they put their stamp of approval on it, then again, that's how awesome this is. But that Indo-Pacific Agreement talks about every nation being sovereign on their own.
right.
And then President Trump with the tariffs, which a lot of people believe that's what April 2nd is alone. It's not just that alone, ladies and gentlemen. It's the correlation with the seat of government, the lawful tender of silver and gold. President Trump has truth all along the way, even before he was visual president the first time, about have fun lobstering and the silver. He was standing in front of a Chevy Silverado and it was silver. Um,
I love it.
and
He's so
and then
creative.
the gold stock, like was when he came down the escalator, he got the frozen picture there, one of them with the gold, and so there's a lot of different things that have correlated with and he talked about crypto and Bitcoin, et
Right,
cetera.
that too. Yeah,
Um, and so when you tie all that in, and then you go back to the sovereign, it goes into his tariffs. And then also the Reciprocal Trade Act that he talks about. It's going to be the Trump Reciprocal Trade Act, meaning like, okay, if China says, well, we're not doing that, and we're going to hit you with this tariff, it goes, well, we're going to hit you with the same tariff somewhere. We'll
right,
make it even,
right.
right? And so that a lot of people don't realize that's not a war.
Mm,
That's being reciprocal, meaning that's being fair, meaning like you're not going to rip us off anymore. All right. If you want to do this, you can. But if you do this, you choose that route, then we're going to do it too. So it will actually prevent more countries from doing some kind of tariff of their own, right? It'll prevent that more than it would strike it up and make, oh, tariff, 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 and tariff, tariff, tariff.
right.
It'll actually prevent that. So it's kind of like there's a doctrine out there called the MAD doctrine,
Hmm.
mutually assured destruction, and it's what President Trump actually did with Russia, and they were in an agreement, a nuclear treaty, way back in the day. They signed this. President Trump got us out of it. All right, and then Russia did the same thing. Well, it actually is the polar opposite of what it actually you would think. You'd
Mm,
think a nuclear treaty would be a treaty that you won't use nuclear weapons.
right.
But when they undid, when you go read it and read what it's about, when they left that treaty, it actually imposes the MAD doctrine. So mutually assured destruction, meaning that if you have nuclear capabilities, and this country has nuclear capabilities, all right, and they're threatening you like something like let's don't use the US anymore, let's use North Korea. let's say North Korea threatens Russia, and Russia goes, okay, well, I got out of this treaty with USA, meaning that if someone threatens me with their nuclear, I won't be the first one to strike. If they strike me, then I get to strike because it's a what defense mechanism. All
Right.
right. So it actually
Mm.
it tells you it actually prevents more nuclear. It actually goes into the effect of, okay, we won't strike you, I won't strike you, kind of
Right.
deal. It's actually more of a peace agreement. All right.
Right.
And it that'll play with your mind a little bit because you think of a nuclear treaty, you think, well, a nuclear treaty, wouldn't that be a treaty meaning that we won't strike each other?
Right.
Go read about it. So it's polar opposite. So
Wow.
it's the same
That's
thing with
something.
this, a reciprocal trade. People hear tariffs and they, oh, you're being mean to someone. No, it's a reciprocal. I mean, if they do it to me, we're going to do it to you. Well, we're not going to put them on people just because. No, President Trump, when he issues his tariff, it means that some nation is saying, well, we want X amount of pounds of wheat, but we're only going to give you this amount of pounds of rice. And you're going, that's fair. That's not even trade,
Right.
right? So that's a great question, but it always ties into the bigger picture. And then
Right.
your currency being reset.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are seeing, and I hate it. A lot of people are getting fake scams for this QFS and all these other
Oh,
things.
yeah.
But here's the thing. If you go back, I put it in, I think maybe part one, but I've got it I definitely have it in my documents. But there's on OFAC, on the comptroller, right? You got to click and click and click. It takes forever to find it, but I'll find it again for people. This was way back in 2020, somewhere in there. They put out an example, meaning it's saying that if you receive a message like this, then report it here. It's a fake and a fraud. But what they do inside of it is telling you what's coming. Inside that message, it says the global currency reset.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a message from someone saying, "Oh, put your currency here and so see a lot of these people that are out there doing these fake scams, they're going to be busted and busted hard because the
Good.
comptroller is telling you right here that this is an example. If you receive, talking about anybody, you receive something like this, contact this. All
Right.
right, and so there are a lot of people using my name and image out there, and people,
They are.
God love them. God love him, but one man, he lost $100,000. I mean, this is real, ladies and
Oh,
gentlemen. All
wow.
right. This is really real. That's why I tell people, I love that you respect or whatever the words is with me and my knowledge. But ladies and gentlemen, do not do that. I'm not one certified for any of that. If I was, I wouldn't be sitting here doing it. I would be in a higher role, right? You would
Right.
see legit people around me. I wouldn't be in my house daily. You know what I mean? Like I would be in a legit office, but it wouldn't look like that either. Like I tell people, who's in command? Trust President Trump, but the way you trust him is to know the laws and the orders, right? All that other financial stuff, that anything that's coming at you separately, individually, stay away from all that. All
Mm-hmm.
right, but that ties into Iraqi, dinar, and all the Zimbabwe and everything else. They have re-evaluated. Now, Zimbabwe is the best one to use because
Mm-hmm.
they had tried through the years to reevaluate their currency, and it would always crash. It hadn't crashed. Like it's standing tall. All
Mm.
right, now I know people out there too that think that they bought, 100 million of Iraqi dinar and it's going to make them a quadrillionaire.
Right, right,
I don't think that either, right? You gotta get in the real world here, right? Is it going to make everybody quadrillionaires? No, like because again, what would people do? You'd have some of the wrong people going out and buying all kinds of. They look like MC Hammer. He's already paid the price, but come on. MC Hammer, he had one hit song and he went and bought houses and cars and jewelry and this. And then
yeah.
next thing you know, he can't afford all the insurance and all the payments on everything that required insurance or maintenance, etc. Then he goes, what? Has filed bankruptcy. No more money. Broke. Right? Instead of putting that away or putting it in land or something that can, bring back dividends. So when you think of that, so the Iraqi dinar, Zimbabwe, all that, they're doing a reevaluating, a resetting of their currencies
Yeah.
in
Like
their
that.
nations
Mm-hmm.
based on their economies,
Mm-hmm.
right? that's why when you hear, I saw another dumb liberal, you have to say it like that, but they were saying, oh, Denmark is the this and this and this, and that's great because of this. Well, move to Denmark, but
Right.
Denmark can't be compared to the U.S. because of the size of the nation, of the GDP, and the population, right? So, certain countries can do certain things, but are Denmark, do they have the Constitution? Do they have the Declaration? Are they free like we are? No, they're not. So take your happy rear end over there and get a part of that government and become part of that. And you'll see, no, actually, it's because Denmark's government requires their people to do certain things, right, and pay certain things. All right. So what everybody's seeing is a resetting of the currencies due to their economies and their GDP and how it correlates. Like President Trump has used before, like talking about NATO, the 2%. He said, no, I don't expect Sweden to GDP to look like the US because they're this. But whatever that 2% is compared as a relevant comparison, then they should pull the 2% of that weight of what they had.
Mm,
Their 2% may not look like our 2%,
right,
but it
right.
still should be a full true 2% out of what they have,
That's
right? That's what makes that reciprocal and fair. All right. If we're doing it out of our 2%, well, if we said, well, our 0.01% looks like your 2%, we're just going to do 0.01, they would go, well, why are we doing 2%? But exactly. So why haven't they done 2% all this time and we've done it? And that's why we have floated NATO for. I did an article on this in 2019 before all this became chatter, and I had the numbers. For 34 years, we floated like 98% of the defense budget for NATO.
wow.
Like, and the numbers were there, and these were all legit, credible numbers. They were like from your main sources. I'm gonna see if I still have that, but so see that's what everybody's watching,
Right.
and everybody's gonna pull their weight, like President Trump said. And you've seen all the nations that capitulated to President Trump,
Oh,
and you've
yeah.
seen all the prime ministers and the
So true.
presidents of these nations who are on board. And it's going
That
to do
is
what?
so true.
The few that didn't, it's going to make those few that didn't shape up or ship out, as the saying is.
Amen. Amen. And that's exactly what's going to happen right before our eyes. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. And again, I want to thank you, Derek, for being on the broadcast today. I know we could go on for hours, and we usually do, and I love it. But I'm kind of at a tight schedule today. But anyway, where can people find you?
Well, you can't know my location, but no. Other than that, oh yeah. So you can. My link tree is probably my best because there's so many fake profiles out there that we just started giving my link tree out. So
Yeah, that's fine.
LINKTR period EE backslash 1776 nation. It pulls up all my accounts, and so that's probably the best way to do it.
Okay.
It pulls up all my websites, etc. So, and that's good to give to your friends and family that think they may be talking to me or something like that, and I'm
Right.
and I'm not.
And that's happened.
Uh,
Yes.
which again, if you're on my official accounts, I will respond to those, but I don't message you. Oh, what's your wallet doing today and all that. Like
Right.
so.
Awesome.
I have trouble with mine alone, so yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, family, for being with us today. We appreciate it. I'm going to have Derek's information below. You got to get number one if you don't have it. Get number two as well. Oops, see, I got notes all over the place too. Can't leave your fortune to your memory. You got to write some stuff down. So, one and two, as you can see, I mean, this is like, yeah, I mean, but the other one, wow. Um, Packed with information. We love you, brother. Appreciate everything you're doing for the kingdom of God, for all people. You're amazing. A God sent for this time, that's for sure.
Well, I'm just keeping my oath and doing what God wants me to do. So,
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate you all too. God bless you. Thank you for joining us on Upfront in the Prophetic. Blessings. Are you ready to thrive in 2025? Well, I wanted to share something with you real quick. The product is called, yes, Fix. That's right. It's a groundbreaking product that allows your body to function as God created it to. It's utilized by the hops plant as well as purified water. Those are the only ingredients. It helps you not only lose weight, but it helps your other organs in your body function as they should, as well as getting rid of the dangerous visceral fat. If you want more information, just go ahead and click the link below, or you can email me and I'll send you the information. You can email me at upfrontintheprophetic@gmail.com. Let's thrive together because this is a whole new kingdom era and we're doing it. Amen.